What about the argument the MAGA folks would make, which is like turnabout is fair play? Tish James kind of did this to Trump, basically, like decided that he was a criminal and was looking for something to charge him with. What would you make of that argument?
Well, it wasn't hard to find something to charge him with. He had committed real estate fraud at a level rarely seen in American history.
All right, we are back. I am delighted to welcome to the show an attorney and the former special counsel for the White House during President Trump's first term. It's Ty Cobb. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me.
You're looking good. You know, we're both in our jean shirts. You know, you're looking a little tan. You know, you don't have the weight of the world on you anymore. I don't know. I feel like you're looking better than you did in 2017.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, I've lost a lot of weight, and gotten in some pretty good shape. And but for the current circumstances, I'd be on cloud nine.
All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about your journey before we got like some news stuff
Sure.
we're going to get to. I want to get your take on. Obviously, since we last posted on Friday, the grand jury came back with an indictment against Tish James over this mortgage. I guess she bought a $137,000 home for a grandniece, and some questions about the way she filed the mortgage. That seems like a pretty ticky-tack indictment. That comes obviously on the tails of Trump directing his attorney general to indict her. So what do you make of the Tish James case?
Oh, I think it's pure vengeance, pure revenge. Trump fundamentally is just crippled by his narcissism. And that plays out in terms of, any adulation he can get, any power that he can accrue to himself, and any revenge that he can take. Those are the things that fuel that, psychology. Like Comey, Tish James had the temerity to charge him with something that he committed. Two appellate courts in New York have upheld the finding of fraud, although there's a dispute over the damages, and the courts have ruled that the damages were improperly calculated. You've got Ned Martin and Bill Pulte, two little pit bulls of little character, who are out there trying to help Trump punish his enemies. Bill Pulte searching the mortgage files everywhere on Comey, James, Lisa Cook, others, trying to find anything that can be brought. And this mortgage was not the mortgage that, they made a big deal out of. In fact, the mortgage they made a big deal out of, the evidence showed that, the bank knew, and she had told them that it was going to be a vacation home. Abby Lowell wrote a declination memo to the Justice Department to present a counter to that alleged case, which is how the Justice Department originally got started. So what they did was, they said, let's find something else. And that's just not the way the Justice Department works. Usually you have a crime that is referred, and you investigate it and you find the perpetrator and you prosecute. Here, they got a list of enemies from Trump, and they went out to try to find anything in the world that they could pin on. This case was also one, like Comey, where seasoned prosecutors, the head of major crimes in the Eastern District of Virginia, told Halligan and others that there was no case here. This was not something that should be prosecuted, but they did it anyway. So this is pure vengeance. I think that's the story. I always get a little worried when people start getting in the weeds about, what about this? What about this in terms of the allegations? The reality is people should focus on the big picture, which is a president should not be out there using the Justice Department purely for revenge.
Yeah. What about the argument that the MAGA folks would make, which is like turnabout is fair play? Tish James kind of did this to Trump, basically, like decided that he was a criminal and was looking for something to charge him with. What would you make of that argument?
Well, it wasn't hard to find something to charge him with. He had committed real estate fraud at a level rarely seen in American history. The damage award from the jury or from the judge, keep in mind, was $347 million. That's a little bit more than the $3,100 that's really an issue in the Tish James case. Now they say, well, no, it's not $3,100. It's $18,900. Well, that's not true. That's only if you took the mortgage all the way out to its, the end of its duration. Right now, they're 5 years into a 30-year mortgage, and the alleged benefit to her is $50 a month. I think it'll be very interesting to see what the bank's testimony is in terms of whether anything about the process actually resulted in her getting any benefit. But $50 a month, I mean, that's compared to $347 million worth of real estate fraud and impropriety by Trump. Give me a break.
Yeah. You were involved, I guess, as special counsel when Trump had fired Comey, and there was a probe into that and defending the administration's actions and all that. I just wonder, looking at this Comey case now with like that perspective of 8-9 years, kind of what do you make of why Trump is so mad at Comey? I mean, Comey kind of helped Trump and the election, and whether and Comey's behavior, from that time through now.
Trying to look at it linearly is probably the wrong perspective, in my view. Trump fired Comey in large part because of the manner in which Trump felt he was shaken down over the phony intel report. And he just didn't trust him instinctively. He fired him. He had the absolute right legally to fire him. It was handled in typical Trump fashion, which is awkwardly.
And that wasn't really the stated. I think they gave a bunch of bullshit stated reasons too.
Right, but at the end of the day, the real motivator was the preparation of the intel report. The buy-in to the Russian misinformation that Brennan is now under investigation for, and the leaks. The timing of the leaks. Now, all of that's, I guess, interesting historical fodder. But at the end of the day, this is an act taken out of mental illness. I mean, this is Trump's narcissism in full bloom. This is not something that would have happened under any other president. And trying to do whataboutism, is really a fool's errand.
I assume, I guess you tell me if I'm wrong, that the end of this will be both James and Comey like having charges dropped or being acquitted, based on political prosecution, and also just based on the merits of these cases, the weak merits of the cases. And so let's say, if you agree with that, and we assume that happens.
I believe that to be the case.
Yeah. Okay. So then, what do you think the implications are of that then, right? Because I do worry, that folks who are not as steeped in kind of the law and the norms and the way things work might just look at this and say, oh, well, kind of no harm, no foul there. When obviously, like, there's a lot of potential danger to, the government targeting people, people feeling chilled, people having to pay, having their lives upended and ruined, having Comey's daughter got fired, what do you think about, like, it is a little bit complex as a political matter in that case, don't you think?
Absolutely. This is sort of so little about the law and so much about, cruelty and intimidation. What government official is going to come forward in these times and criticize Trump or say no to some initiative that Trump wants to do? I mean, look at what Bondi has done in just a few months, where her loyalty is so patently to Trump and not to the Constitution. I mean, she's abandoned her oath and is willing to do these despicable things that no attorney general in history, with the possible exception of John Mitchell, has ever thought about doing. It's pretty stunning. But I think the cruelty and the intimidation factors are really intended to quell any internal criticism or any government official, or actually any official, from criticizing him.
So what do you say, though, to people, and maybe you don't, I don't know what your kind of relationship is now to folks who are still supporters of the president, or, who had been around him. Like, how do you break through to them the severity and the seriousness of the moment if it doesn't, if the consequences aren't tangible?
Well, it's interesting. I'd be interested in your response to that too.
Okay, sure.
Because you and I have spent long time in or around Republican politics, centrist Republicans.
Yep.
You were very helpful to Jeb Bush. I was a big contributor to Jeb Bush. I thought that was the way for the country. I'm sad we didn't go that way and went with Trump instead. But that party's gone. That's gone.
Yeah.
It's all MAGA now, and trying to reach them is insane. I mean, it's Tom Homan with $50,000 in a paper bag. People think that's okay, and if they think that's okay, how are you going to tell them to, cross on green and stop on red? They don't get it.
All right, folks, the weather is cooling, especially for many of you up in the Northeast. I was in New York on Saturday in a beanie. I was in a beanie. No, it was on Sunday morning after the show, going to get coffee. Hate that. I'm a summer boy. And luckily we get, the extended summer down here in the South. But even still, I have to go to New York and D.C. And so I've been starting to think about my fall and winter gear. And I've been turning to our friends at Quince that delivers every time with wardrobe staples that'll carry you through the season. Quince has the fall attire that you'll want to wear on repeat, like 100% Mongolian cashmere from just $60. Classic fit denim like me and Ty Cobb are both wearing today. And real leather and wool outerwear that looks sharp and holds up. By partnering directly with top artisans, Quince cuts out the middlemen to deliver premium quality at half the cost of similar brands. I was eyeing a little cable knit sweater. I've had a cable knit sweater for a while that I was wearing on MSNBC, and I had somebody that will remain nameless tell me about how gay I was looking in that quarter knit in that cable knit sweater, and I got to tell you, I take that as a compliment, and so I took that feedback, and I was like, I'm going to go to Quince and get a new one, and I got a new merino wool cable knit sweater coming that you'll be seeing probably not anytime soon in New Orleans, but next time I'm in DC and New York. So keep your eye out from that. It's going to look cute. Layer up this fall with pieces that feel as good as they look. Go to quince.com/thebulwark for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. What's up, Canada? That's QUINCE.com/thebulwark. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/thebulwark. So I guess let me ask you, that takes you to your part of it. You mentioned it. You're a Jeb supporter. We appreciaed your donation. Though I don't know if we spent it as judiciously as maybe we could have. Why did you go in the first place?
That's an excellent question. I think at the time I said, in response to a question from Caitlin Polans, who was, I think, at Law 360 or one of the legal magazines at the time, that I likely made this decision because I had rocks in my head and steel balls. And it was not, so I was never a Trump supporter, and quite the opposite. But I thought it was a very, very dangerous time for the country. I mean, nobody knew at the time whether, Trump had actually colluded with the Russians, which he hadn't. And there was a lot.
Wanted to.
Well, he might have, but the reality is, it's just sad that that event, Clinton campaign paying Michael Steele through Jake Sullivan and Mark Elias, generated what has turned out to be
Christopher Steele. You mean?
No, oh yeah, Christopher Steele. I'm sorry, yeah, not Michael Steele, not my former governor or former lieutenant governor in Maryland. So it's unfortunate that happened, and but in typical Trump fashion, the response is far more powerful than the initial insult. But at the time, nobody knew whether Trump had colluded with Russia. Mueller had been appointed. Mueller was a close friend of mine. And I'm sad that he's got health issues these days, because I don't really know many people in American history who I think more highly of than Bob Mueller. But we had a long relationship, and I thought the country might be able to get through that issue slightly less divisive way if I could help manage it from the Trump White House side. Now, as a lawyer, it was a assignment. It was not passionate, I got to defend the president kind of thing. And we worked through it. I mean, we there was never a subpoena. There was never, a dispute about the quality of the White House response. The one, frustration for Mueller over, the White House response was, Trump refusing to be interviewed. But legally, the quality of the response made their ability to force him to be interviewed virtually impossible under the law, which is a bunch of cases, the most prominent case being Espy. So at the end of the day, once I had largely completed my task, I was ready to go. I mean, I had opportunities to stay in the administration in more consequential roles. But that's not why I was there. I wasn't there, to add to my resume. I was there to perform that one task, and I got it done, and I left.
And I guess the big complaint about that was at the very end, which was the Barr letter, though, or the way that Barr kind of dissemination of the report. Yeah, I think that was controversial. On the other hand, what I think people don't understand is that letter was required by statute, and by the special counsel statute. Yeah, I think the difficulty was the fact that the Mueller report sort of did not adhere to the guidelines for a special counsel in terms of resolution. They sort of left a bunch of things up in the air, forcing the attorney general to make some decisions. So I think you can criticize Barr for wordsmithing, but I don't think it's fair to criticize him for actually the conclusions he reached, because I think they were really dictated by the facts. But it was, but that again shows you how divisive the whole thing was. The back to the question about you being kind of in there and whether or not to be in there. I like people are going through this at this time, and there's just this huge difference in my perception from the period where you were there, 2017-18 to now. I mean, you're obviously focused on the Russia probe, but you have Don McGahn in there, John Kelly, and there are a bunch of people who I don't, have a ton of love for, and who did a bunch of things that I would not have gone along with. But yet there were folks that were like trying to put limits on him and fences on the president and make sure that he kind of stayed within the bounds of the law. And there were less known people that were also doing that, particularly on the legal side in the Justice Department and elsewhere. And that seems to be totally gone. And I'm wondering what you think about that, like now, and whether it was good to have those guardrails there back then, or how to what the right way is to handle that. It's a real tough question.
I think that's a great observation. Certainly Kelly was one of the people that tried to restrain the president. And actually, I don't think the country will ever know the efforts and the successes that Kelly had in that regard. Under circumstances that were incredibly, frustrating for him. He's another guy, a man of honor who, loves his country and has made some enormous sacrifices, including the death of his son in the service, which is particularly significant, I think, because it goes to that day at Arlington where Kelly's son is buried, and Trump's talking about these guys as losers and what was in it for them. He suffered some just shocking disappointments, but he served brilliantly and forcefully. There were other people. So I will say that, certainly Mattis, the General Mattis, was effective in terms of preventing the president from doing some of the things that he's doing now in terms of these, isolated, the war crimes in Venezuela and many of the things that he's doing internationally. Nikki Haley was very effective. I think there were people who were experienced and talented and that Trump recognized knew more about what they were doing than he knew. Now, as opposed to now where he, appoints his friends or neighbors or, people who said nice things about him on Fox News to positions they're clearly unqualified for, have no expertise and, are busy running the government into the ground.
Yeah. And so I guess the question is then, how people should handle this. And I've had like a long running debates with like Steve Hayes and Safara and some other friends about like, should people go in to try to do that, or do you become complicit with him? Now I think this question is very acute among people that like work for justice or work for the FBI, and you were an assistant U.S. attorney early in your career. If you're somebody like that and you are now being directed to either prosecute Trump's foes or focus your entire department only on immigration crimes rather than, any other crimes, or, like what do you say to somebody that is right now in the Justice Department and FBI or FBI trying to figure out whether it's worth having people that follow the law in there, or whether they should be hitting the road?
That's a question that hits at home for me. I get contacted frequently by senior FBI people and others in the intelligence community about, I got to get out of here, and I try to urge them to stay. That's not everybody's view. There are a lot of people who would like to see mass resignations, as a protest against Trump. But as we now know, those jobs will be filled by loyalists and
podcast hosts.
Yeah, I mean, The Walking Dead. Yeah, I mean, anybody who will serve Trump. So my recommendation is I've always believed the more good people you can get into government, the better the government is. And I hope people will stay and resist in the military and the Justice Department, anything involving the rule of law or the world order, and not follow the president's desire to have a war against American citizens and occupy blue states, and not to create a Justice Department where if you're a friend of his, you can take $50,000 in a paper bag as a bribe, not only avoid prosecution, but retain a significant job in the administration. This is not America, and we need to see if we can recapture America. I don't think the Justice Department can be restored in less than a generation. It may take longer, and that assumes that at some point people wake up. I'm very pessimistic about the decline and where we're at. I'm not sure that people can hit the brakes. I think it's you got to throw the parachute out there and hope that you land safely.
Yeah, I also worry about that. I don't know that the Justice Department. It would take, I think, some type of outsider candidate to run on a mandate of cleaning up at Washington to do it, because, obviously I think that the Democrats will be more well-intentioned than Donald Trump. But if you're just a regular Democrat, you get back in there in 2029, it would be rational to say, I want to use the Justice Department to go after the people that are doing the crimes right now. And I would be for that, I think. And if I'm for that at the Bulwark, then who's going to be against, who's going to be against that? And so I don't know how I think it's over. I think it's, as you said, you're pessimistic. I feel like I'm even more pessimistic.
Well, we should probably expand our group and have a therapy session. But I think I would love some accountability at the conclusion of this, but I would be happy if it just ended. A Nuremberg type session with, Bondi and Hagstead and Noam and others. I think that would be a wonderful event. On the other hand, I think America's got to figure out a way to unite. A house divided, the language of that is a few hundred years old, but it's so true. And look at us now. I mean, we've never been more divided. We've never been more isolated in the world. We've never been reviled the way we are around the world. And internally, every institution, that sustained, the American dream or the vision of America as the shining light on the hill is on fire. And burning down, and that's in part by design. I mean, the people that are implementing the 2025 strategy, the racist, violent approach to immigration that we have now, as opposed to a measured, legalized process. They understand that if you can take away America's confidence in their institutions, it forces you to be true to your leader. because there's no power left except in the way they're trying to accumulate it in the executive. So I think it's very destructive, and trying to rebuild it is just going to be hard.
If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. Here's why you should say yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for $15 a month. Ditch the overpriced wireless and their jaw-dropping monthly bills, unexpected overages, and hidden fees. Plans start at $15 a month with Mint. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/bulwark. That's mintmobile.com/bulwark. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Yeah, and I would also enjoy Nuremberg, but just even at a smaller level, just like you're gonna have to clean out the people that were the hacks that were brought into these institutions, right? And there are people that have done like crimes that are more mid-level, right? And I mean, like, how do you change the way that the DHS is treating people, right? I mean, you have to completely change the policies around ICE and the federal government. I mean, all of that is an unimaginable undertaking, kind of, for me.
It is. On the other hand, I mean, it does highlight one of the problems we have, which is the dearth of true leaders out there to help us. I think historically, even 20 years ago, there were people out there of character and courage who could come up. Now, money sort of talks. These positions are largely bought through campaign contributions or otherwise. We don't have. We're not going to get there with Schumer and Jeffries. I mean, it's pretty weak sauce. There's really no democratic message, and nobody coming forward that. I mean, I guess my frustration is, I think if a Bashir or a Mark Kelly or even a Gretchen Whitmer could be anointed at this stage of the game, so you have a counterweight to the tyrannical dictator that we're all enduring, and the Democrats could sort of have a debate with the country about what do you want? Do you want the America that we once had, where the world looked up to us and we fought for democracy and freedom and civil rights, or do you want what's going on now, and domestically and internationally? I just don't see. Yeah. I just don't see the Democrats, doing anything helpful at the level at which we need them.
Woke Ty Cobb is out here, It's a racist, authoritarian, and the Democrats need to fight harder. Why is it that it is telling, I guess, that so many people that were around him and close to him come out of Trump's world sounding like you, sounding like they could be with the Bulwark. In some ways, not being right does me no good, but it is noteworthy, like the folks that saw this up close and personal who are trying to sound the alarm.
Yeah, I wish more of them would speak out. I think there are a lot.
Why do you think that is? Like you mentioned earlier that he's going after revenge, and you said he did 9 hits yesterday or whatever. Why are you doing this? And there is no Pence, no McGahn, right. No Kelly. Why are you doing it?
That's a great question. I ask myself sort of every day. I'm doing it largely because I think I should, because I think the stakes are so high. I think these revenge prosecutions sort of pulled me out of the once or twice a week mode into almost every day now. I wish I wasn't doing this. I'd rather be at an Airstream, driving around the national parks out west, or playing with my grandkids. But through circumstances that are historical and largely accidental. I'm in a position where, I have spent time with Trump. I think I have a pretty earned assessment, and I've spent a lot of time in government in positions where, the exercise of discretion was, the paramount activity every day. And the guidelines on that discretion always had to do with, is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it moral? And those questions are not being asked anymore by people in power.
I'm going to Catholic priest you for a second. Is it? It's not a sense of penance. You don't feel like you're doing your 10 Hail Marys?
Oh no, I mean, no, not that. No, I don't feel. So I actually felt that the task that I was asked to perform, was done in a way that was beneficial to the country. Like I say, avoided any divisive legal fights during that process, and got it done. And I left. I mean, I wasn't there out of ambition. I had other opportunities, but that's not why I was there. I went to do that one task and I left.
In some ways, the fact that it's not about penance actually speaks to the gravity of the situation, right? That it is about the merits of the threats that are facing us, and that you are looking at it and feel like not enough people are on high alert.
I think there are a lot of people who share my views who would be, more perfect spokespeople. General.
Do you hear from any of them?
I do sometimes. But, for example, a few years ago, General Kelly was very, full-throated. On the other hand, I don't know anybody who endured more and, deserves his retirement. But people like that. There are people out there, Mattis, and Kelly and others who, have condemned the president and talked about how dangerous he is for America. I try to repeat things that they've said so that, it's clear that they get credit for it and not me. I'd love to see some mainstream Republicans come out and, say the things they said the week after January 6th when they had a chance to put Trump in the rear view before they caved and let him back in. But more importantly now is, I'd love it if Republicans came out and, rejected what's going on. But I'd also love it if the Democrats got organized and had a message.
Yeah. You're not hearing from the folks that agree. Are people pissed? Are you hearing from people that are like, shut the fuck up, Ty?
I get a lot of that.
Yeah. From just regular folks at the grocery store, or from your former colleagues?
So not so much from my former colleagues. Not so much. I mean, some yes, but not so much there. Yeah, I mean, people I grew up with. I grew up in a little town in western Kansas. And people who've been lifelong friends. It's not for the faint of heart, but at the same time, I just think it's important.
All right. Last thing. What you think it's important? When you look out at all of this, what do you feel like is the most acute threat? What is the thing that has you keeping an eye open at night? So I'm not sure I have a great perspective on that so much. For me, I've got sort of a focus on the disintegration of the rule of law, and I do think that is, if not the greatest threat, certainly among them, because historically it's what's distinguished us from third world countries and Pinochet's Chile and Stalin's Russia and Hitler's Germany and the Khmer Rouge. But I think the attacks on institutions, colleges, law firms, turning the Department of Justice into his own personal, police and revenge force. I think those threats are eroding the rule of law at a pace we've never seen, and the distinction between us and tyranny is disappearing. I lied. I have one more follow-up to that, because here's the thing that keeps me up at night that maybe you can tell me what you think about, because it's related to all that. They've put a lot of clowns in the FBI, but I worry when you look at what has happened with the intimidation efforts and these prosecutions of Comey and James. I've always felt like the thing that worries me is if they wanted to start doing this, there are a lot of ways that you can hassle and harass people before indicting them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of powers, surveillance or otherwise, that the, FBI and DOJ has. What, you said you're getting some calls from people in the FBI. Do you think that is a fair worry as you start to look at the trajectory that these guys are on?
Very much so. Very much so. I mean, the FBI has been decimated at the leadership level. The number of agents that have been forced out is certainly in the hundreds. Some merely because they, did a perfunctory task in connection with the serious investigations of Trump's refusal to peacefully allow the transfer of power and the 1-6 exercise and the classified documents case, where unlike the indictments against Comey and James, you've got page after page of quotes from emails and documents and stuff that demonstrate that those crimes were clearly committed. So I think we're eradicating the protections that America has, and the same thing's going on in the military, and that's, I think, equally serious, if not more so. I mean, I don't think we've ever been as isolated. We've never successfully united our enemies and offended our allies in a way that is going on now. And our safety, I mean, with Hegseth, including his wife in meetings and phone calls and reporters from the Atlantic, I mean, it's ludicrous what he's up to, bringing 800 flag officers to town to talk about how his physical strength and exercise routine. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I think the country's in great danger, and I think the military and the rule of law are probably the two things that bother me most.
All right. That is the way to end a Bulwark podcast. That is in the spirit of the show. So I appreciate you very much, Ty. Thanks for coming on. And if you find yourself in New Orleans, a bourbon on me. All right. Well,
thanks so much. And I just want to say, I can't tell you what a great service you perform by getting these conversations out there. And I hope people are actually listening and thinking about it.
We're doing our best. Thanks so much, Ty.
My pleasure.
Hope to see you in person sometime. And everybody else will be back here tomorrow for another edition of the Bulwark Podcast. It's going to be a banger. See you all then. Peace.